What if I told you that one night, scientists were quietly listening to space? And suddenly they received a signal so strange, so powerful, and so perfectly timed, that even a trained astronomer could only write one word beside it. Wow! No joke. That is the real reason it is called the wow signal. And here is the scariest part. It happened only once. It never came back. Not the next day. Not the next week. Not the next year. Not in the next 50 years. So the question is still alive today. Was it the first real message from intelligent aliens? Or was it something else, something natural, but incredibly rare? Tonight, you will hear the complete story. To understand how shocking this was, we must go back to the year 1977. No smartphones. No Wi-Fi. No satellite internet. In fact, even computers were not common. But scientists were already doing something very modern. They were searching for intelligent life beyond Earth. This scientific search had a name. SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. The logic was simple. If aliens exist, and they have technology, they might send radio signals the same way humans send radio, TV, and satellite signals. Radio waves can travel across space for thousands of years. So if someone is broadcasting, we might hear it. In the United States, at Ohio State University, there was a special radio telescope. It was not like a normal telescope that looks at stars using light. This telescope listened using radio waves. Its nickname was legendary. Big Ear. Big Ear was designed to scan the sky slowly, like a giant ear turning in space. It listened for signals around a very specific frequency. 1420 MHz. Why this frequency? Because it is the natural frequency emitted by hydrogen, the most common element in the universe. Scientists believe that if intelligent life wanted to send a message, they might choose this frequency because it is a universal meeting point, like a cosmic highway. The date was August 15, 1977. Big Ear was scanning a quiet part of the sky near the constellation Sagittarius. Everything was normal. Until suddenly, the telescope detected a burst of radio energy. Not weak. Not random. It was strong, extremely strong. And it was at the exact frequency SETI scientists expected. This alone was enough to make people freeze. But what made it truly terrifying was the pattern. The signal grew stronger, then peaked, then faded away. It lasted for about 72 seconds. Exactly the amount of time Big Ear would naturally detect a single point in the sky as Earth rotated. Meaning, the signal was not coming from Earth. It was coming from a fixed location in space. Now here's the famous part. Big Ear recorded the signal on paper. Yes, paper. A long printout full of letters and numbers. When the astronomer Jerry Emmons saw it, he circled the strange data and wrote one word beside it. Wow! The recorded sequence was 6EQUJ5. This code represented the strength of the signal at different moments. And it was not normal. It was too strong to be a distant background noise, too clean to be random, and too perfectly timed. For a moment, it felt like the universe had spoken. The wow signal was strange because it met many of the criteria of an intelligent broadcast. White heavy checkmark, was narrowband, not wide noise. White heavy checkmark, was at 1420 MHz, the hydrogen line. White heavy checkmark, came from a fixed point in the sky. White heavy checkmark, followed the telescope's scan pattern perfectly. White heavy checkmark, was extremely strong. And yet, it happened only once. That is the biggest mystery. Because if aliens were sending a message, why send it one time only? Scientists immediately tried to detect it again. They turned Big Ear back to the same area. They listened again and again. Days passed. Months passed. Years passed. Nothing. The signal was gone. Like a whisper from another world. That disappeared forever. And that's where the real mystery begins. Because there are only two possibilities. One, it was a real intelligence signal. And we missed the second message. Or, two, it was something natural, something rare. That perfectly imitated intelligence. In part 2, we will explore the biggest suspects. Was it a military signal? A satellite? A comet? Or something that scientists still don't want to admit? After Jerry Emmons circled the printout and wrote "Wow," the story did not become a public sensation immediately. First, the scientists did what real scientists always do. They tried to destroy the mystery. Not because they hated aliens, but because science does not accept magic. Science demands proof. So the first question was simple. Could this signal have come from Earth? Because if it did, then it was not aliens. It was just human noise. And in radio astronomy, human noise is everywhere. Radio telescopes are extremely sensitive. They can detect signals weaker than a whisper from across the world. So even in 1977, Earth was already full of radio transmissions. TV broadcast towers. Military radar. Communication satellites. Aircraft signals. Spacecraft transmissions. Even accidental electronic interference. So SETI scientists asked, did Big Ear accidentally catch a human signal? At first, this seemed possible. But there was a problem. The wow signal was detected near the hydrogen line frequency 1420 MHz. And that frequency is special. Because it is so important for astronomy, it is heavily protected. Many transmissions are restricted there. Not completely impossible, but less likely. One of the first serious explanations was a satellite. Because satellites can send strong signals, and they can appear briefly as they pass through a telescope's beam. But again, there was a major issue. The wow signal lasted 72 seconds, and the shape of the signal matched a fixed point in the sky. A moving satellite would usually create a different pattern. Also, scientists checked known satellite transmissions. No matching source was found. So the satellite theory weakened. Then came the theory that always appears in mysterious stories. It was the military. Some people claimed secret military experiments, classified space transmissions, Cold War signals, hidden satellites. And yes, 1977 was the middle of the Cold War. So this theory sounds believable. But here is the problem. The wow signal's frequency and narrowband nature were not typical of military radar. Military signals usually have different patterns, different bandwidths, and repeat. The wow signal did not repeat. And no evidence ever appeared to support this claim. So scientifically, the military theory is weak. Another explanation was simple. Radio interference. Maybe someone turned on a machine. Maybe a transmitter spiked. Maybe an electrical glitch happened. This is common in radio astronomy. But the wow signal was not random garbage. It was clean, narrow, and behaved like a sky source. And Big Ear had systems designed to detect interference. Also, if it was interference, scientists expected to see similar signals again. But they didn't. So it wasn't an easy explanation. Then scientists looked at natural space sources. Could it have been a pulsar? A quasar? A supernova? A cosmic radio burst? The answer was mostly no. Because most natural radio sources produce wideband noise. They spread across many frequencies. But the wow signal was narrowband. Extremely narrow. That is usually a sign of technology, because nature rarely produces signals that look engineered. So the wow signal stayed in the dangerous zone. Too strange to be nature. Too unproven to be aliens. Now here is the detail that made the wow signal almost impossible to solve. Big Ear was a fixed telescope. It did not rotate like modern radio dishes. It relied on Earth's rotation to scan the sky. So it had two horns, two listening beams. Meaning, if a signal was real and coming from space, it should have been detected twice. Once by the first horn, then again by the second horn a few minutes later. But the wow signal was detected only once, not twice. This is one of the biggest arguments against it being a real extraterrestrial broadcast. Because if a source was steady, it should have shown up again. Unless the source was a single short burst, or a moving source, or something that stopped transmitting. After 1977, scientists repeatedly pointed telescopes at the same region of the sky. They used Big Ear again, other radio observatories, better equipment, more sensitive receivers, and still nothing. No repeat. Not even a weak echo. It was like the universe sent one message and then erased it. So by the end of the investigation, scientists were left with a terrifying conclusion. The wow signal was real, but the source was unknown. It did not fit perfectly into any category. And that is why it became the most famous SETI event in history. In part 3, we will go into the most controversial explanation ever proposed: the comet theory. Some scientists believe the wow signal did not come from aliens, but from a comet passing through space like a giant transmitter. Is that possible? Or is it just an excuse to avoid the alien answer? Years passed after the wow signal, and the strangest thing happened. Instead of fading away, the mystery became stronger. Because in science, when something happens once and never again, it becomes dangerous. It becomes a ghost event. Something that may be real, but cannot be proven. And that is exactly what the wow signal became. The most famous unrepeatable signal in SETI history. Scientists tried to explain it with satellites, interference, and cosmic noise. Nothing fit perfectly. Then, decades later, a new explanation appeared. An explanation that sounded almost ridiculous, but also strangely possible. In 2017, a retired professor named Antonio Paris proposed a theory. The wow signal may have been caused by a comet. Specifically, a comet named 266P/Christensen, and possibly another comet nearby, P/2008Y2 Gibbs. Now, at first, you might think, how can a comet create a radio signal? Comets are just ice and dust, right? But the key detail is this: comets often carry large clouds of hydrogen gas around them. And hydrogen is directly linked to the frequency Big Ear was listening to. 1420 MHz. The hydrogen line. So the comet theory was born from a simple scientific idea. If a comet passed through Big Ear's field of view, and if it had a large hydrogen cloud, maybe it produced a strong radio emission. Not an alien message, but a natural hydrogen signal. The comet theory became popular because it solved multiple problems at once. White heavy checkmark. It explains why the signal happened only once. Because comets move. White heavy checkmark. It explains why it was near the hydrogen line. Because comets contain hydrogen. White heavy checkmark. It explains why it came from that exact area of the sky. Because the comet was passing there in 1977. And most importantly, it gave scientists a safe explanation. Because the alien explanation is terrifying. Even scientists don't want to announce aliens unless they are 100% sure. But the comet theory also had serious weaknesses. The biggest one is, comets are not known to create narrowband signals like that. A comet's hydrogen cloud would normally create broad radio emissions. More like a smooth natural blow. Not a sharp, narrow, clean signal. The wow! Signal was narrowband. And narrowband signals usually look technological. This is one of the strongest arguments against the comet explanation. Many radio astronomers also questioned, could a comet really produce a signal that strong? The wow! Signal was not a weak detection. It was extremely powerful compared to background noise. If a comet could do that, we should have seen many more signals like this from other comets. But we haven't. That doesn't completely kill the comet theory, but it weakens it. Antonio Paris did something important. He did not just talk. He actually tried to test the idea. He used a radio telescope and observed comets. And he reported that he detected radio signals around the hydrogen frequency. This gave the comet theory more attention. However, the scientific community did not accept it as a final answer. Why? Because his equipment was not identical to Big Ear. His results were not universally replicated. And his detections were not as clean and narrow as the wow! Signal. So the comet theory remains a possibility, but not a confirmed explanation. Remember the detail from part 2? Big Ear had 2 horns. If the source was real, it should have been detected twice. A moving comet could explain why it was detected once. Because the comet could have moved out of the second horn's path. But this requires very specific timing. A perfect coincidence. Possible, but not guaranteed. This is why the wow! Signal is so famous. Because both sides have strong points. If you support the comet theory, you say, it was natural hydrogen emission. It was a moving object. It explains the one-time nature. If you reject the comet theory, you say, the signal was too narrow. The signal was too strong. Comets don't behave like transmitters. The data doesn't match perfectly. So the scientific world remains divided. And that division keeps the mystery alive. Now here is the most exciting part. Even if the comet theory is wrong, that does not automatically mean aliens. Because there is another terrifying possibility. A rare natural phenomenon that we still don't understand. Something that can create a signal that looks engineered. In part 4, we will explore the most shocking question. What would an actual alien signal look like? And why the wow! Signal still fits the profile better than almost anything ever recorded. Let's be honest. When people hear about the wow! Signal, they don't really want to know about comets. They don't want to know about telescope horns or technical printouts. They want to know one thing. Was it aliens? And if it was, what does that mean for humanity? But here's the truth. Scientists avoid that question not because they are scared, but because the word aliens can destroy credibility. Even if the evidence is strong. So in public, scientists often say, we don't know. But privately, many admit something important. The wow! Signal is still one of the best candidates ever recorded for an intelligent transmission. To understand why, you need to know something about radio astronomy. Space is loud. Not in sound, but in radio noise. Stars emit radio waves. Galaxies emit radio waves. Even gas clouds emit radio waves. So how would we detect intelligence? The answer is simple. Look for signals that nature almost never produces. And the number one signature is a narrowband signal. A narrowband signal is a signal concentrated in a very small slice of frequency. Think of it like this. Natural signals are like a loud waterfall. Artificial signals are like a laser pointer. Nature is messy. Technology is precise. The wow signal was narrowband. That is why it became legendary. The second reason is the frequency itself. The wow signal came from around 1420 MHz, the hydrogen line. This is important because hydrogen is the most common element in the universe. So scientists believed intelligent civilizations might choose that frequency for one reason. It is universal. Any civilization that understands physics will know hydrogen. So this frequency is like the universal radio channel. A cosmic hello frequency. So when the wow signal appeared at this exact place, SETI researchers felt chills. Because it was exactly what they were searching for. Now we come to one of the strongest details. The wow signal did not appear randomly. It followed a perfect pattern. Slowly increasing. Reaching a peak. Slowly decreasing. This is exactly what happens when a radio telescope beam passes over a real fixed source in space. It looked like a genuine sky source. Not an electrical glitch. Not random interference. It behaved like a signal coming from deep space. Now we hit the biggest wall. The wow signal was detected only once. And this is where the alien theory becomes both exciting and terrifying. Because if it was aliens, there are several possibilities. Possibility 1, it was a beacon. A beacon is a signal sent continuously, like a lighthouse. But if it was a beacon, we should have detected it again. So this is unlikely. Possibility 2, it was a directional transmission. Maybe the signal was aimed like a narrow flashlight beam. It passed across Earth for 72 seconds. Then moved away. That would explain why we never heard it again. Possibility 3, it was a one-time burst. Maybe it was not meant for us. It could have been a radar pulse, a spacecraft communication, a test signal, a brief transmission between two alien stations. And Earth just happened to be in the path for 72 seconds. Like walking through a room and hearing one word from a conversation. Here is the most chilling possibility. What if aliens did not call us? What if we simply overheard them? That would mean something terrifying. The universe could be full of signals. And we are too weak and too early to detect most of them. The wow signal could have been one of the few moments where our technology got lucky. Now we reach a famous problem. If aliens exist, why don't we see them? This is called the Fermi Paradox. The wow signal became part of this paradox. Because it is like a crack in the wall. A tiny hint that maybe we are not alone. But it is not enough to prove anything. Even today, the wow signal remains respected because it matched the exact SETI search target. It was narrowband. It was strong. It came from the sky. It lasted the exact amount of time expected. It was never explained fully. And because of that, it remains one of the most mysterious moments in modern science. Underscore 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 9. End of part 4, cliffhanger. Now we come to the final question. If the wow signal was real, why have we never heard anything like it again? And what is SETI doing today with modern technology? In part 5, we will explore the modern search. The most powerful SETI programs today. new discoveries like fast radio bursts. And the final truth. The wow signal might not be the proof of aliens, but it may be the reason we will eventually find them. After the wow signal, scientists did something that sounds simple, but is emotionally painful. They listened again, and again, and again. They aimed radio telescopes at the same region of space for years. But the universe stayed silent. No second message. No reply. No pattern. Just emptiness. And this is why the wow signal is so powerful. It feels like the universe opened a door for 72 seconds and then slammed it shut forever. Here is a detail many people don't know. The telescope that detected the wow signal, Big Ear, doesn't exist anymore. In 1998, Big Ear was shut down. The land was sold. And the telescope was demolished. So the one instrument that caught the greatest signal in SETI history was destroyed. That feels like a cruel ending. But science didn't stop. Instead, the search evolved. Modern SETI is far more advanced than in 1977. Today, we have supercomputer signal analysis, artificial intelligence filtering, large radio telescope arrays, wider frequency scanning, better noise rejection, continuous sky monitoring. Meaning, if the wow signal happened today, we would not just record it on paper. We would save the full raw data, detect the exact direction precisely, analyze the bandwidth and modulation, instantly alert other telescopes worldwide, confirm whether it repeats, and track it in real time. In other words, the biggest tragedy of the wow signal is not just that it happened once. It's that it happened at a time when our technology was still too limited. In the last decade, scientists discovered something called fast radio bursts, FRBs. These are powerful radio flashes from deep space. Some last milliseconds. Some repeat. And they are incredibly energetic. At first, some people said, could FRBs be alien signals? Scientists mostly think they are natural phenomena like neutron stars or magnetars. But FRBs changed something important. They proved that the universe can create radio bursts that look mysterious. So now, the wow signal is not alone anymore. It is part of a growing list of strange cosmic radio events. So what is the final scientific verdict? The most honest answer is, we don't know. And that's not a weak answer. That is the strongest answer science can give when the evidence is incomplete. The wow signal has never been proven to be aliens, comets, satellites, interference, or any known natural object. It remains officially unexplained. If we stay rational and realistic, there are three leading possibilities. 1. A rare human-made signal. Something like an unknown satellite, a classified transmission, an accidental leak. This is the most normal explanation. But the lack of evidence is frustrating. 2. A rare natural space event. Something we haven't fully understood. The universe is still full of unknown physics. 3. An intelligent transmission. The most exciting option, but also the hardest to prove. Because a single event is not enough. Science requires repetition. Even if it wasn't aliens. The wow signal changed human history. Because it did something powerful. It proved that one day, we might actually hear something. It made the search feel real. Not fantasy. Not movies. Real science. A real telescope. A real printout. A real signal. And one real word. Wow. Now here is the final truth. If the wow signal was aliens, then somewhere out there, a civilization exists that is capable of transmitting across space. And that means we are not alone. But if it wasn't aliens, then it means something else equally important. That the universe is still full of surprises. And we are still beginners. Either way, the wow signal reminds us of something humbling. We are listening to the ocean of the cosmos with a tiny cup. And sometimes, for just a few seconds, the universe speaks back. So the next time you look up at the night sky, remember this: the silence doesn't mean nobody is there. It may only mean we haven't learned how to listen properly yet. Because somewhere, in the darkness, a signal may be traveling right now. And one day, we might hear it again.
Subscribe Info Beyond Borders now for more mind-blowing knowledge.